They say there's a kind of beauty that kills. The kind that steals your breath, your reason, and your soul, one heartbeat at a time. And in the realm of Slaanesh, beauty isn't just dangerous. It's divine. I used to mock the tales, you know. Those old whispers about the pleasure cults, about people who found joy in surrendering to the Prince of Excess. I thought they were pathetic. Fools chasing sensations they couldn't control. But life has a strange way of humbling you. Sometimes you don't go looking for Slaanesh. Sometimes Slaanesh finds you. It began months after what people here called the Festival of Awakening, a celebration that marked the planet's slow descent into something unholy. By then, I had already learned to keep my head down, to survive quietly while the world around me turned into a carnival of insanity. But temptation always finds cracks. Even in the strongest resolve, one evening, a coworker named Raoul, the kind of man who wore his recklessness like a medal, kept pestering me to join him for a night out. He wasn't a zealot, not yet, but he adored the new freedoms this chaos had brought. The parties, the drugs, the music that made your bones vibrate. He said I needed to loosen up, to stop pretending the old ways mattered. I said no, repeatedly, but deep down I was tired. Tired of fear, tired of pretending, tired of the hollow silence that followed every shift. So I went. Emperor, forgive me? I went. The place was called the Velvet Vortex, though no one ever said its name aloud. It wasn't marked on any holo map, but everyone seemed to know how to find it. Through an alley that stank of oil and incense. Down a hatch that hadn't seen the light of day since before the heresy. We descended into darkness. The deeper we went, the more the air changed. Thicker, warmer, humming with some invisible energy that made my skin crawl and my heart race. By the time we reached the end of the tunnel, I could already hear the music. It wasn't sound exactly, more like a vibration that sank into my chest and refused to leave. At the entrance, there were no guards, just two greeters, barely clothed, their smiles too wide to be real. They touched everyone who entered, not in a search for weapons, but something else. A greeting, a claim inside the world, shifted. The first thing that hit me was the color. Pink and gold lights shimmered in clouds of perfumed smoke. Shadows and bodies moved together as one, a single pulsing mass of pleasure and noise. The air was alive and with laughter, with moans, with whispered prayers to a god whose name you could taste on your tongue if you breathed too deeply. Raoul disappeared almost immediately, lost in the crowd of dancers and painted faces. I stayed back near the bar, or what passed for one. It looked like a piece of a broken machine wrapped in silk and humming softly. The bartender smiled at me, tall, elegant, inhumanly graceful. Her tattoos shimmered in the light, moving across her skin like living things. She had 6 arms, each one serving a different drink, and eyes that changed color every time she blinked. First time, she purred, her voice smooth and melodic. I nodded, too stunned to lie. Then this one's on the house, she said, sliding me a glass filled with liquid that glowed like liquid emerald. To help you see, I didn't want to drink it. Every instinct screamed at me not to. But her gaze, those shifting eyes, made saying no impossible. I took a sip. It was sweet. Too sweet? The taste lingered on my tongue like perfume and poison. A warmth spread through me almost instantly. Not the warmth of alcohol, but something deeper, something alive. My pulse matched the rhythm of the music. The light softened, then brightened, then bent, and then things began to change. The air itself seemed to shimmer. The crowd blurred, their bodies melting into one another until the dance became a single shape. Vast, radiant, breathing. Faces appeared in the smoke, faces I knew. My parents, old friends, people long dead. They laughed and cried and whispered my name. I blinked and they were gone. But the panic remained. I turned back to the drink and nearly dropped it. The liquid was moving, swirling into patterns that looked almost alive. And then I saw it. An eye, small and blinking, staring back at me from inside the glass. My breath caught. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The bartender laughed, that same melodic tone now sharper, mocking. "What's wrong, darling?" she cooed. "Don't you like what you see?" The crowd shifted again. Faces melted. Eyes appeared where mouths should be. The music warped into whispers that clawed at my mind. And when I looked down, the floor wasn't a floor anymore. It was covered in a carpet of tiny, slithering things writhing beneath my boots. I tried to run. Someone grabbed me, or maybe something. I fell, landing on what I thought was a couch, soft and warm. But it moved. It breathed. And then she appeared. A dancer from the stage, her body glowing faintly, her smile wide enough to split her face. Her eyes were twin suns, burning gold and pink. And when she bent down to whisper in my ear, her words slid straight into my mind. "Let go," she said. "Why resist? You came here to feel, didn't you?" I tried to speak, to pray, but the words melted in my mouth. She placed a hand on my cheek, cold, too long, with fingers that ended in delicate claws. The scent of her skin was intoxicating, flowers and blood and starlight. "Just let go," she whispered again, her smile widening. Something in me broke, not in surrender, but in terror. I shoved her away, stumbled to my feet and ran. The music turned to laughter, high and cruel, following me through the crowd as I pushed through the bodies, the colors, the smoke. I climbed the ladder to the surface, gasping, sobbing, laughing all at once. When I reached the cold air of the city above, I collapsed against the wall, choking on the night. My hands were shaking, my skin slick with sweat, and for a long moment I couldn't tell if I was still in the club or if I'd truly escaped it. Because behind me, in the distance, I could still hear the music, faint, but pulsing, and then as if it were calling my name. Fartu, the morning after the beautiful nightmare. When I woke, I thought I had died. The light bleeding through the cracked window wasn't sunlight, not really. It was a dirty pink haze, the kind that never feels natural no matter how long you stare at it. The air in my hab was stale, thick with the scent of metal and old perfume. My mouth tasted like burnt sugar and ash. I sat up slowly. My head throbbed like someone had driven nails behind my eyes. My clothes were still on, wrinkled, reeking of incense and sweat. For a long moment I just sat there trying to remember where I was, what had happened. And then I saw it. The reflection, the shard of mirror hanging on the wall, showed a face I didn't recognize. My face, but wrong. The whites of my eyes were streaked with pink veins that pulsed faintly, like tiny worms under the surface. And my irises, once a dull brown, now glowed faintly gold, shimmering like the drink I'd swallowed. I froze. My heart went cold. I had seen this before, and not in person. But in the whispered stories the faithful used to tell about the touched, those who lingered too long in the shadow of the warp. Some returned changed, eyes that glowed, skin that shimmered, voices that echoed in ways no human throat could produce. It was never a blessing. It was a warning. "Emperor," I whispered, though my voice cracked halfway through the prayer. The name felt strange in my mouth, like a word that didn't belong here anymore. Still, I stumbled to the sink and splashed my face with the cold water that sputtered from the rusty pipe. It burned, as if my very skin resisted purity. For a terrifying moment I thought the color in my eyes was growing brighter. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a bottle of cheap amasec, and poured some over my face, scrubbing until my skin turned raw. It didn't help. All it did was make me smell like a drunk heretic. Please, I whispered. Make it stop. Maybe he heard me. Maybe not. By midday, the gold had dulled, fading back to something closer to normal. My eyes still looked strange, but not enough to draw suspicion. I found an old pair of tinted goggles and slipped them on. It was easier to pretend everything was fine when I couldn't see myself. But the fear didn't fade. That night, when I closed my eyes, I dreamed of her. The dancer from the velvet vortex. Her smile glowed in the darkness, wide and endless, her voice slithering through my mind. You saw, didn't you? She whispered. You saw how beautiful it is. I woke up screaming, choking on air that felt too thick to breathe, and even though the room was silent, I could swear I still heard faint laughter. Soft, distant, echoing like it came from the walls themselves. After that, I stopped sleeping properly. The dreams always came back, and bright, feverish visions of color and sound, of music that clawed at my soul. Sometimes I saw myself dancing among the crowd again, smiling, laughing, glowing like them, and sometimes I liked it. That was the worst part. You don't realize how fragile your soul is until you feel it tilt, until you catch yourself wondering what it would be like to stop resisting, to give in. Days bled into weeks. The city above grew louder, stranger. The chaos cults no longer hid in the shadows, and they ruled now. Priests of the Dark Prince walked the streets in robes of silk and blood, preaching that joy was worship and suffering was ecstasy. Factories still ran, but the workers sang as they toiled, their faces painted in shimmering powders. I kept my head down, worked when I had to, smiled when I was supposed to. I learned fast that being unhappy in this new world was dangerous. People who frowned too long disappeared. They called it ascending. I knew better. One day I passed a procession in the market district, robed figures carrying a gilded palanquin through the streets. On it sat a man I used to know, a merchant named Fail. His eyes were gone, replaced by orbs of light. His mouth was a perfect smile carved into his face, too wide, too bright. He was singing a hymn to Slaanesh, and the sound of it made the crowd weep in joy. I turned away before he saw me. Later that night, when I closed my eyes, I saw him again, this time standing at the foot of my bed. You don't have to run, he said in a voice that sounded like silk tearing. You just have to feel. I remember whispering no over and over again, even though I could barely hear my own voice. That's when I realized, this isn't a place you escape. This is a place that lives inside you. Even when you leave the club, when you wash the perfume from your hair and hide behind tinted goggles, it stays. The music, the colors, the feeling, the memory of beauty that was never meant for mortal minds. Slaanesh doesn't take your soul all at once. He takes it in fragments. Every sigh, every dream, every moment you let your guard down. And the most horrifying part? You start to miss it. Part 3. The City That Sings. It's strange how quickly horror becomes routine. You wake up one day and realize the screaming in the streets no longer makes you flinch. The scent of burning incense and flesh just smells like morning. The people you pass, painted, perfect, broken, are simply people now. You stop noticing what's wrong because it's everywhere. That's life here. Under Slaanesh's rule, even the ordinary is grotesque. My days start the same way they used to under the Imperium, early, tired, hungry. Except now the sirens that mark the work shift aren't alarms. They're music. The same haunting melody plays every morning across the city, soft at first, then building until the walls hum with it. Some call it the Symphony of Dawn. Others whisper that it's alive, that the music isn't made by machines at all, but by something beneath the streets, something that feeds when we march in rhythm. I don't know if that's true. I just know the sound never stops. My work detail is assigned to one of the lower manufactura, once imperial, now claimed by the cult of exquisite industry. We build things still, though no one really knows what for. Weapons, probably. Or instruments. Maybe both. Here, the line between the two is meaningless. The machines hum and groan like living beasts, and we feed them offerings of sweat and blood. The foremen, if you can call them that, are no longer human. They glide through the aisles on stilted limbs, their faces hidden behind silver masks carved into frozen smiles. Their voices are like choir music played backward. When they speak, everyone listens. We work until our arms ache, until the air feels heavy with exhaustion and perfume. Then at shift's end, the hymn changes. A slower song, softer, almost tender. That's how they reward us. They say it's to remind us of Slaanesh's mercy. Mercy. Once under the Imperium, punishment meant lashes or death. Simple, predictable. Here, punishment means art. The unlucky ones are turned into displays. Living statues draped in silk, suspended in poses of eternal pleasure or agony. Sometimes both. They call them the blessed forms. We pass them on the way to the refectorium. I try not to look, but sometimes I recognize a face. Ral was one of them. They put him near the upper walk, close to the balcony where the nobles pass by. He's posed mid-laugh, mouth open wide, eyes shimmering with gold dust. It's beautiful in a way that makes my stomach turn. They say he volunteered, but I know Ral. He liked pleasure, not pain. Whatever he did, he probably just stopped smiling long enough for someone to notice. The nobles adore their living art. They call it transcendence. I call it horror, but I keep my face still. Always still. That's the first rule here. Control your expression. If you frown, they'll ask why. If you look sad, they'll say you need correction. If you look afraid, they'll tell you to rejoice. It's safer to wear a blank mask and pretend it's bliss. We still eat, though food here is a performance too. The upper castes dine on jeweled meats and fruits that glow faintly with warp light. The rest of us get whatever drips from the table, literally. I once saw a woman catching syrup from a noble's banquet in her hands, laughing as it burned her palms. The smell was sweet like roasted sugar. They said it was a blessing. And yet despite it all, there are moments, tiny, treacherous moments, when I forget to be afraid. When the air smells like spice instead of rot. When the light hits the towers just right and turns them into glass spires of impossible color. The beauty of it catches me off guard. That's the danger of this place. It wants you to admire it, to crave it. Sometimes after my shift, I walk home along the canal where the water glows faintly blue. The reflections shimmer like silk, and the statues along the bank seem almost peaceful. I find myself wondering, did they finally find joy? Did they stop fighting and become part of the beauty? And then I remember the dancer's voice. Why resist? The whisper never leaves me. It hides behind every sound. The hum of the machines, the laughter in the distance, the music that seeps through the walls. It's everywhere, and it's patient. Some nights I catch myself humming along. Part 4. The price of beauty. It started small, as all damnations do. The first signs were whispers at the edge of hearing. I'd be working, lost in the rhythm of the assembly line, and I'd swear someone was calling my name. Softly, just beneath the hum of the machines. Sometimes it sounded like a friend's voice. Other times like my own. I'd look up, expecting to see someone beside me. But there was no one, only the endless rows of workers, their faces fixed in the same trance. Then came the mirrors. There are no true mirrors here, only polished metal sheets or liquid glass panels that reflect too much or too little. Yet I began to see myself in them differently. My features would shift for an instant. A flicker of something perfect, beautiful, alien. The kind of beauty that hurts to look at. The first time it happened, I stumbled back so hard I nearly fell into one of the machine forges. The reflection had smiled at me, though my face had not. I tried to ignore it, pretend I was just tired, that the fumes and sleeplessness were playing tricks. But the more I denied it, the more frequent it became. And then came the dreams. They began like memories of home. Soft light, warm air, my mother's voice murmuring a prayer to the Emperor before dawn. But each time I tried to speak the words with her, they twisted in my throat. The syllables turned sweet and sharp, reshaping themselves into hymns of Slaanesh. I'd wake drenched in sweat, the echo of that forbidden name still on my tongue. It terrified me more than any punishment could. Because it wasn't forced. It was natural. Too natural. Like part of me wanted to say it. Ral once told me back when he was still alive that Slaanesh doesn't conquer through chains or fire. Not at first. The Dark Prince wins by offering you what you already secretly desire. The beauty, the freedom, the joy you're too ashamed to admit you crave. You reach for it thinking it's yours. Only later do you realize it's you who belongs to it. That's the trap. I used to believe I was different. That I could walk through this world untouched, observe its horrors with detached disgust. But lately I'm not so sure. There are moments, frightening, thrilling moments, when I catch myself enjoying it. The rhythm of the machines, the perfume in the air, the taste of the food even when it's half poison. I hate that it feels good. I hate that it feels alive. A few days ago I passed through the upper promenade to deliver supplies. It's forbidden for common workers, but no one stopped me. Maybe they didn't see me, or maybe they just didn't care. Up there the streets shimmer like opal. The nobles drift between crystal spires draped in living silk. Music seeps from the walls themselves, a heartbeat in harmony with your own. For a moment I just stood there lost in it. It was too much, too beautiful. Then I saw one of them, a woman if the word still applies. Her skin glowed faintly and her eyes were stars caught in glass. She turned toward me and smiled. The same smile I'd seen in the mirrors. For an instant I felt a pull like gravity reversed. My knees weakened. I wanted to walk to her, to kneel, to surrender, and then I remembered Raoul. His perfect, painted grin. I forced my eyes down and muttered the only prayer I still knew. Emperor, keep me ordinary. The music around me shifted, low and amused, as if the city itself were laughing. That night, when I finally slept, the dream returned. I stood in a hall of endless mirrors, each one reflecting a version of me more beautiful than the last. In the center stood the dancer, the same creature from that cursed night at the Velvet Vortex. Her voice was a melody that burned. "Why do you resist?" she whispered. "You could be more than this." "I don't want to be more," I said, though my voice trembled. "I just want to be me." She smiled sadly, almost kindly. "There is no you left to protect." When I woke, I was crying. Not from fear, but from grief, because a part of me believed her. Part 5. The echo that remains. I don't know how long it's been since I last slept. Time here moves like a serpent, coiling, tightening, forgetting where it began. The sun doesn't rise or fall in this place. It just changes color. Sometimes the light is rose gold and soft as silk. Other times it's a raw wound in the sky. You stop counting days because the days stop counting you. The manufacturums still hum with their endless pulse, and the streets still shimmer with the beauty of decay. The screams that echo through the towers now sound almost like music to me. Not because I enjoy them, not anymore, but because they never stop. They've become part of the world's rhythm, like the beat of a heart you can't escape. I think that's the true horror of Slaanesh's domain. Not the pain, not even the pleasure. It's the stillness beneath both. The moment you realize there's no difference anymore. You've seen too much, felt too much, and now there's nothing left to feel. I walk the corridors where people once lived, though I'm not sure what we are now. The air smells of wine and oil, of blood and perfume. Every surface shines as if it were polished by tears. Statues of impossible beauty line the halls, their eyes half closed in bliss. Sometimes I think I hear them breathe. Sometimes I swear they whisper my name. I've learned that Slaanesh doesn't torture you to break you. The Prince of Excess teaches you to break yourself, to fall in love with the thing that's destroying you. You think it's freedom, but it's worship. You think you're touching heaven, but you're sinking into the pit. And when you finally understand the difference, it's already too late. One night, or whatever passes for night here, I found myself back in that mirrored hall from my dreams. Only this time I was awake. I could see every reflection staring back, 1,000 versions of me, each one smiling. I wanted to run, but the floor was liquid glass and it rippled under my feet like water. In the center, the dancer waited. No longer distant, no longer divine. Just a shape, beautiful, terrible, familiar. She didn't speak this time. She just held out her hand. And I did something I swore I never would. I took it. For a moment, everything stopped. The noise, the pain, even the fear. There was only warmth. And in that warmth I heard a whisper, not cruel or mocking, but almost gentle. You were never meant to suffer, it said. You were meant to feel. It's strange how comforting those words were. Even now they echo through me. I don't know if I died in that hall or if I'm still there, lost in one of those reflections. Maybe that's the trick of this place. You never know when the transformation is complete. But sometimes, when the machines fall silent for a breath and the air stills, I can feel the old world again. The one I came from, the one that still prays to the Emperor and believes salvation has meaning. I hold on to that memory like a dying ember, because even if I am lost, even if I've become part of the song that devours all others, that ember still burns. Maybe that's enough. And if anyone ever hears this, if any soul, wandering or damned, finds these words drifting through the void, remember this. Beauty here is not a gift. It's a hunger. And hunger always wins. The domain of Slaanesh is not hell. It's paradise, and seen too clearly. They tell us Slaanesh is the god of pleasure. They don't tell you what pleasure becomes when it has no end. It starts as color, too bright, too alive. A song that's too perfect to stop listening to. A touch that lingers too long. And then it twists. The color burns your eyes. The song drills into your skull. The touch devours what's left of your soul. Here, beauty is a weapon, desire is a chain, and every heartbeat whispers the same lie, that this feeling is worth dying for. I used to think the Imperium was cruel, but the Dark Prince, he doesn't need to be cruel. He just makes you want it. The pain, the loss, the madness, all wrapped in a smile too perfect to look away from. Every pleasure becomes torment. Every face becomes temptation, and every prayer you whisper to the Emperor fades into laughter, soft, mocking, endless. If anyone hears this, remember, it's not the pain that breaks you in Slaanesh's realm. It's the beauty, because once you see it, truly see it, you'll never want to look away again.